in California, in New York, in Arizona, in Texas, everywhere, you've got these pamphlets being put out by the Muslims, Sharia-compliant laws, Sharia-compliant loans to buy your home, Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae. This has been going on for a long time. This one, nice, beautiful color deal. One of my people picked this up in Orange County. Now, under Sharia law, 2.5% of the loan sent out, payment of the loan, goes to funding terrorism. It's called zakat, Z like zebra, A-K-A-T. This is happening right now, has been happening for years and years in the United States, all 50 of the states of the United States, in Canada too. Also, as part of this package here, the Muslim Brotherhood puts out Know Your Rights, the Muslim Brotherhood being the Islamic Society of North America, and more significantly, Council on American Islamic Relations. You got the terrorism that's preached by these two characters here. Now you've got Salam al-Mariyati, who's a big player in California. He's a big player in New York, Dallas, Texas also, working with the LAPD counterterrorism commander who loves Islam. He loves the Muslim Brotherhood. Clip number one. Let's go to clip number one.
The Muslim Brotherhood, is an organization, a politically active motivation. I'm sure it does exist here in a different form. I think that one of the benefits of what we do in terms of dealing with the motivational aspects of terrorism is to outreach and engage with the community so they don't feel isolated, balkanized, oppressed, and besieged. And our biggest counterterrorism strategy in this community is the partnership that we have with the Muslim communities.
The Brotherhood's very active in this county.
I know the Brotherhood.
So here you go. Again, you got this guy here, LAPD counterterrorism commander, working with known Muslim Brotherhood advocate, who's a major player at one of the biggest theological seminaries in California and one of the most powerful ones in the United States, the Claremont School of Theology. The Muslim Brotherhood school there is the Bayan School of Theology. We've gone through that before. Where did this come from? Well, it came from this guy here, George H.W. Bush. And here he is with the terrorist King Fahd of Saudi Arabia, funding terrorism all over the world. About 3,000 mosques in the United States, funded by Saudi Arabia. And they preach and they teach that a good Muslim is supposed to do what Muhammad did, that is, to be a murderous thug. It's summed up in the logo of the Muslim Brotherhood, Surah 860, to wage jihad, war, and terrorize the infidel. And here you have the L.A. sheriff, soon to be thrown in prison, Salam al-Mariyati, and one of the key pioneers that brought the Muslim Brotherhood into the United States. Clip number two.
Just like Republicans and Democrats are more conservative and more liberal, that's what we have here. But the message is not to demonize the Brotherhood here, but to create not to demonize the Brotherhood. But and we don't necessarily engage with the Brotherhood, but people who we're trying to show that, look, the message of Al-Qaeda is unattainable. There's no way we will ever have a worldwide Muslim-dominated world with Sharia law and a caliphate.
Did you believe that?
Okay, so going into that, the LAPD counterterrorism commander, aiding and abetting, loving, working with, eulogizing one of the key members of the Muslim Brotherhood, Maher Hadhoot, not long ago. The buffoons, and it passes along from George Herbert Walker Bush to George W. Bush to General Mattis. It goes to the Secretary of Homeland Security, Jay Johnson, working with Muslim Brotherhood leader Musamil Siddiqui. I've met him face-to-face 3 times, talked to him 3 times. And Musamil Siddiqui actually led this guy to Islam, and this guy is Adam Gadon. And he is now in Pakistan and on the top list of the FBI for one of the top terrorists in the world. And then you add this in from Corona, California, not too far from Los Angeles, Hussam Ayloush. This symbol down here, the 4 fingers, means he's Muslim Brotherhood. This symbol here means that he supports al-Nusra, ISIS, and he's working part of the insanity of the LAPD and the LA Sheriff. And we have the leader of the LA Sheriff complimenting this guy on what a wonderful and great guy he is. Now, he adheres to the logo of the Muslim Brotherhood, and down here means Surah 860, to wage jihad, wage war, and terrorize the infidel. Clip number 3.
But the doctrines change. If you read Kutub's book on milestones, that's the milestones issue, right? That's kind of the base about what al-Qaeda did. Yeah, I know all about that. I know about when Habana created that at the fall of the empire, right? And why he did it, to keep it pure and all that. So things have changed. And I think in this country what we're looking at, and you should do some research on this, is the word ijtihad. Well, and the idea of ijtihad, in fact, tomorrow, listen, no, it's not. Listen, no, it's not, but listen to this. Tomorrow, we're going to announce a $50 million grant in Claremont. The first American university is going to train American imams in what it is to live in a contemporary environment under democracy. Because what they're doing, bringing these foreign imams in, is not good, because they don't have the they don't have the context of what it is to live here. They don't have the context of what it is to have Islam and democracy coexist.
They don't have the background to understand about Islam and democracy, and they can coexist. Hey, Michael Downing, the LAPD counterterrorism commander, I was standing right there when that interview was done. I was less than a foot from the LAPD brainwashed guy, thinking he's going to bring in terrorist imams from the third world into the United States. They're going to go to the Bion School of Theology. He's talking about the Lincoln School at Claremont, which is one and the same. They're on the same campus. And that, lo and behold, by teaching a few things that can't we all just get along and whatnot, that all of a sudden these imams who have been chanting death to America and Surah 860 in the Muslim Brotherhood logo that we were talking about, this is what they believe right here. So he's going to make them change the doctrine of the Quran, the doctrine of 14 centuries of Islam, from wage jihad, war, and terrorize the infidels. And all of a sudden these guys are going to become coexistent with American values. Hey, that's crazy. And that goes through some of the other crazy things here. The interfaith, their motto is advancing peace through interfaith and harmony, which is, it's baloney. It's not going to happen, because it all goes back to Surah 860. Here is the central issue, the central message of Islam. In Christianity, John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, a great thing. And that leads also to James 1:27, true religion is taking care of widows and orphans. This verse here creates widows and orphans. This verse here creates murderers and thugs. What did Muhammad do? 22 verses of the Quran commands a good Muslim to lie, to use taqiyya, kitman, maruna, and tariya, the four Islamic Arabic words, to lie to the infidels so that they can come in and allegedly advancing peace through interfaith and harmony. Well, what that means is you give up, you quit, and you fool little girls like this here. You got Megan Fair is her name, and poor little Megan, she's a Quaker, and she works for the Muslim Brotherhood up in Seattle. And here her signs say, I see God in this Muslim Brotherhood, and I see light in this Muslim Brotherhood, and this Muslim Brotherhood says, I see Allah in both of these people. But what he really sees right here is Surah 860, to wage war and jihad and terrorize the infidel. Clip number 4. Clip number 4.
Listen, no, it's not, but listen to this. Tomorrow, we're going to announce a $50 million grant in Claremont. The first American university is going to train American imams in what it is to live in a contemporary environment under democracy. Because what they're doing, bringing these foreign imams in, is not good, because they don't have the they don't have the context of what it is to live here. They don't have the context of what it is to have Islam and democracy coexist.
They don't have the context because they don't believe in the golden rule. They don't believe in doing to others as you would have done unto yourself. They believe in Surah 860, to kill, to terrorize, to maim, to rape, to beat up, to throw down, to do cruel and evil things like Muhammad thigh, masturbating between the thighs of his 6-year-old wife. Hey, that's called pedophilia. Islam is the penis-driven religion. Islam is PMS, power, money, and sex. Islam is RPM, religious, political, and military. Islam is MPH, Muslims per host. When they hit 10% of the general population, 100% join together to destroy that culture, to take it over, to destroy it, like locusts coming in and eating up the fruited plains and things of that nature. And Islam, finally, the answer to Islam is always the same. Damn, deport all Muslims now. Now, I know you don't like what I'm saying, and I don't really care. Because those who have the balls, those who have the courage to step up and do what I'm doing are always going to be maligned and lied about. And it's just part of the 6,000 years of recorded history. It's found in the Republic of Plato, the allegory of the cave, where people like me who step up and tell the truth, I'm ahead of my time. I research 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 hours a day on this stuff since they blew up the World Trade Center. That's 17 years I've been researching, going out face to face, talking with people dressed like Osama bin Laden, people dressed like this, all over California. I've been to California. I've been to Arizona, Missouri. I've been to Ohio, and running into these people and talking to them all over the place, in San Francisco, in San Diego, in Los Angeles, in Riverside. I've done it time and time again. I get a kick out of Muslims who say, yeah, but you've never talked to a Muslim before. Really? I've been death threatened so many times. In 2007, the first death threat against my group, suicide bombing, happened in 2007. That's 11 years ago in Anaheim. And it all goes back, always follow the money. Here they are offering Sharia-compliant loans so a Muslim can buy a house, and through that mechanism, they can fund global terrorism. They fund suicide bombers and murderers and beheaders and ISIS and Taliban and Al-Qaeda. It's on all of our college campuses. It's called the Muslim Student Association. Don't believe me? Look it up. These are Muslim Brotherhood, and they're all working to destroy us. They're just doing that. All right, clip number 5. Clip number 5.
What it is to live here. They don't have the context of what it is to have Islam and democracy coexist.
Wasi is our 15-year-old.
I've shown that now several times. I've shown that many, many times in the last 5, 10, 15 years. I've shown that many times because people don't believe me. But when you wake up one day and the Muslims they have their no-go zones, which they have in Denmark, they have them in Sweden, they have them in Germany, they have them in France, they have them in Italy, they have them in Brussels. They've got them all over Europe. No-go zones. We're not too far from that. You're going to wake up one day and it's going to become violent because Islam always goes to violence. They have nothing left. Once you determine that Islam is PMS, RPM, MPH, and DAMN, once you realize and you go through and you talk to these people and you share with them the truth, no matter how you say it, if you say it sweetly and nice, if you say it tough and bold, if you say it like you're trying to stir up trouble, if you say it like you're trying to keep peace, it doesn't matter. They will always come back to violence. The people that I work with here at this studio have all been through that for the last 10 years since I've been doing this show, since 2008. They have begging me, pleading with me, please, Mr. Steve, wake them up. Clip number 6. Clip number 6.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar.
I ended on that note. You don't have to watch any more of that stuff there. Maybe you will. But the kid getting up there and he's all like, oh, hey, Allah Akbar, hey, we all love you, we all want to get along, peace be unto you, brother, oh, you're wonderful, you're great, you know, and here's what they're doing, they're lying, advancing peace through interfaith harmony. You know what that means, peace for them? That means you either convert to Islam and become a lunatic like them. Lunatic comes from the word luna, because the Europeans being attacked for hundreds and hundreds of years by the Muslims knew at a certain time of the year, because the Muslims are always looking at Luna, that they would act like lunatics. That's where the word lunatic comes from. It refers to the Muslims. And the crescent moon on the outhouse is another thing that they did to substantiate that the Muslims are crazy. Okay, so we have inside Al-Shabaab, which is in Somalia, and Al-Shabaab is no different than Boko Haram, Al-Qaeda, Taliban, Emirs of the Caucasus in Europe, Abu Sayyaf in the Philippines, the Uyghurs in China. Everywhere they go, they all follow those 22 verses in the Quran based on this right here, Surah 860, the Arabic, to wage war and terrify the infidel. Clip number 7.
Let me just speak briefly to the Muslim Brotherhood as an international movement, and then I'll ask Director Mueller to speak specifically to it here domestically. And the reason I do that, of course, is because this is the Muslim Brotherhood is prominent in what's going on now in Egypt and elsewhere in the Mideast. The term Muslim Brotherhood is an umbrella term for a variety of movements. In the case of Egypt, a very heterogeneous group, largely secular, which has eschewed violence and has decried Al-Qaeda as a perversion of Islam.
Right.
They have pursued social ends.
James Clapper, I've heard him many times, a retired lieutenant general in the Air Force, didn't do anything really as far as combat goes. He flew like a logistical plane. And he comes in there and he makes a total buffoon, a total ass of himself, and he doesn't understand what he's talking about. And he's in charge of all of our, he's still in charge of all of our intelligence agencies. And what's going on is that through George Herbert Walker Bush and George Walker Bush, we have plenty of proof that back in the 1990s, it was George Herbert Walker Bush who led everybody away from investigating Islam to find out why Islam is at the basis of everything. Now, the terrorism. This morning, or it came out in the news today that in St. George, Utah, an ISIS-inspired student at the high school, I think it's Pine View High School in St. George, tried to blow up the school, and they caught him, thank God, beforehand. Now, it's been buried in the story. Now, I research this stuff. I get up early every morning and bring up all of this stuff, and I'm really acute to looking and focusing in to all the terrorism around the world, and I was stunned. One of my friends had sent me a text last night early in the morning that this had happened at the St. George school up there in Utah, that the kid wanted to blow it up. Now, they refused to mention his name. They refused to mention his religion. And all they said was he was ISIS-inspired. Well, ladies and gentlemen, ISIS-inspired, what do you think inspires ISIS or Al-Shabaab? What do you think makes these guys do what they do? Could I please submit to you it's the Quran? And down there at the bottom, that Arabic is the central 14 centuries old, 1,400-year-old message of Islam. It's never changed. Wage war, wage jihad, and terrorize the infidel. They're all based on what did Muhammad do, the 22 verses in the Quran, and we've discussed that, how he's a murderer, a thug, and he is a pedophile and had sex with a 6-year-old girl, and how he did all of that stuff. It's just crazy. Okay, clip number 8. Clip number 8.
Our number one and top priority is to protect and defend our communities. It is not to assimilate and to please any other people in authority. I hope that we, when we stand up to those who oppress our communities, that Allah accepts from us that as a form of jihad, that we are struggling against tyrants and rulers, not only abroad in the Middle East or in the other side of the world, but here in these United States of America, where you have fascists and white supremacists and Islamophobes reigning in the White House.
So she's no different Then right here with the Al-Shabaab, she's given the message of Surah 860. She is Muslim Brotherhood, by the way. She marched in the Vagina March in Washington, D.C. with a feminist, and her central message is that Sharia law is feminist-oriented. Really? You put on a burqa or a veil, or you get the hell beat out of you. You got to wear the scarf, or you get the hell beat out of you. If you leave Islam as a man or a woman and you live in a Muslim-controlled land, they'll hunt you down and kill you, which is going on. CNN rejects that, even though we've got tons of proof, evidence, and facts about that. Linda Sarsour, she's involved with the LAPD and the LA Sheriff with all of this crazy stuff. Now, I know a lot of people keep asking me, but Steve, what's religion got to do with politics? And it's going to take some study, because we've been walked away from that. Now, in Democracy in America, which I've shown here before, Democracy in America on page 38 of the original 800-page volume, which is about that thick, the one they give you in college is this thick, and they take everything else. It shows that the political theory is a religious doctrine of the Ten Commandments being the basis of our common law. And we have tons of proof through the guy found in Article 1, Section 8, Clause 10 of the U.S. Constitution. This is the law of nations, and the father of international law, Hugo Grotius, wrote about the law of nations, and Article 1, Section 8, Clause 10 of the law of nations was adopted from the belief system of Hugo Grotius, which was the doctrine of the United States for many years, up until probably just the end of World War II. And the doctrine of the law of nations is clearly based on the Ten Commandments, not Sharia law. In fact, from the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli, it was our law of nations, the Ten Commandments, versus Sharia law, versus the grandparents, the great-grandpas of ISIS and Al-Shabaab. It was the conflict and the contradiction of Islam based on Surah 860, the Muslim Brotherhood, the Arabic at the bottom, wage war, jihad, and terrorize the infidels. And Thomas Jefferson and John Adams met with the leader of Libya, of Tripoli, and said, why are you attacking our ships and kidnapping our sailors and Marines? He said, I'm a Muslim. This is what Muslims do. He was talking about this right here. That's what they do. But right now, we've got Michael Downing and the L.A. Sheriff Baca and the current McDonald Sheriff of Los Angeles, George Herbert Walker Bush, George W. Bush. Proof. We've got people after people, leaders after leaders after leaders who completely reject. And there, Michael Downing is saying we're bringing in these imams into the United States and we're going to try to teach them to coexist with American values. Well, American values are based on the golden rule, do unto others as you would have done unto you, which is the basis of the Ten Commandments, or the two great commandments, love God with all your heart, mind, and soul, is similar to that. Love your neighbor as yourself. Upon this rests all the law and prophet. Love is the fulfillment of all the law. Under Islam, it is not that way at all. Look, the overarching purpose of education in the West, in America, is to transmit the wisdom of our ancestors to every child, that we might all live in the land with the highest degree of peace, order, liberty, and prosperity. Highest degree, not perfect. Nobody's perfect. You're not perfect. I'm not perfect. And government is merely made up of unperfect people like me and unperfect people like you, and then we do the best. Under America, it was divide power, enumerate power, power and not enumerated to the feds as reserved for the state, because they knew under Lord Acton that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts, because I'm not perfect, you're not perfect, for all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. We're not perfect. So the American solution was the rule of law based on Article 1, Section 8, Clause 10, the law of nations, the Ten Commandments in the Constitution of the United States, and because man is depraved, because we're ambitious, vindictive, and rapacious. Just look at all our politicians. They're ambitious, vindictive, and rapacious. And it's a constant craving, attack. Go get more power. Go get more power. Go get more power. And so as a result, the founders, who were Calvinists, Christians, Protestants, and de Tocqueville clearly wrote in Democracy of America that the Americans, by and large, at least 98%, had rejected the principles of the popes. They were anti-papists. They were called Protestants. And so they knew in order to keep the highest degree of peace, order, liberty, and prosperity, they had to divide power, enumerate power, power not enumerated to the feds or reserved to the states. That is a Christian concept of Protestantism that flows out of the Westminster Confession and the Holy Bible. Now you take the overarching purpose of education and Islam, and the overarching purpose of education in Islam is to send only boys to madrasas, to beat them into memorizing the Quran, to send out these little jihadists throughout the world, to convert every nation into the regime of Arabia in the 7th century under the Prophet Muhammad, thereby creating the highest degree of hostility, disorder, slavery, poverty, and misogyny, and 14 centuries of proof, evidence, and facts proves this. Clip number 9.
Some time ago, I had a conversation with a Marxist economist from China. He was coming to the end of a Fulbright fellowship here in Boston, but I asked him if he had learned anything that was surprising or unexpected. And without any hesitation, he said, yeah. I had no idea how critical religion is to the functioning of democracy. The reason why democracy works, he said, is not because the government was designed to oversee what everybody does, but rather democracy works because most people, most of the time, voluntarily choose to obey the law. And in your past, most Americans attended a church or synagogue every week, and they were taught there by people who they respected. My friend went on to say that Americans followed these rules because they had come to believe that they weren't just accountable to society, they were accountable to God. My Chinese friend heightened a vague but nagging concern I've harbored inside that as religion loses its influence over the lives of Americans, what will happen to our democracy? Where are the institutions that are going to teach the next generation of Americans that they, too, need to voluntarily choose to obey the laws? Because if you take...
So you've got this guy here, the LAPD counterterrorism commander, working with the Muslim Brotherhood, thinking that he can bring in the Muslim Brotherhood logo with the Arabic at the bottom to wage jihad and war and terrorize the infidel. He thinks he can keep the American dream going by that. That professor right there just pointed out that indeed religion is so important because that's where your morals, the moral condemnation that we use to punish criminals for doing pedophilia, murder, rape, the moral condemnation of the nation. Now, under Islam, they are allowed, under the Muslim Brotherhood, they are allowed to murder you, to rape you, to beat you. That is all part of 14 centuries of Islam, and these guys, Al-Shabaab and Al-Qaeda, Taliban, they all prove that, and that all proves that this man here, Michael Downing, is a useful idiot. Saul Alinsky, Trotsky, Lenin, he's a useful idiot. He's going to get us all killed. He's going to lead us into civil war. I'll be back. Adios.